So my now ex-wife and me, we crossed a whole mountain range in full autonomy with our own water, food and tent while fasting in Ramadan 2011. Ramadan 2011 fell in August, which meant days of fasting were 16 hours long from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. We walked a total of 67 kilometers. We climbed a total of 3,000 meters and we walked a total of 44 hours, and this with 27 kg of equipment on my back. The most we've walked in a day was 15 hours and a half. The highest we've been at was 2,900 meters. So we crossed the Vanoise mountain range and national park, which is one of France's most beautiful national parks in the Alps. So it took us 5 days. First day we walked from the Val d'Isère station to the Col de la Rocheur. Then day 2 from Col de la Rocheur to Col de la Vanoise. On day 3 we walked to Pralognan-la-Vanoise. We had 24 hours of rest. Then from Pralognan we walked to the Aiguille d'Oran, and from Aiguille d'Oran to Modane in the south. So to navigate, we didn't use any GPS, any electronics. It was 2011. So to plan and navigate, we used IGN maps, which are, let me show you, it's here, the equivalent of Ordnance Survey's maps in the UK, where you have all the information you need. And for estimating the distance for the planning, so I took a shoelace and I would lay it on where the trails were to measure the actual distance we would walk. I usually walk at 6 kilometers per hour. This is convenient. It means 1 kilometer in 10 minutes. When we cross mountains, I usually multiply the time/distance by 1.5 or 2, depending on the difficulty. Well, for start, it was a mistake. I wanted us to have a 1-week spiritual retreat before Ramadan in nature. And my ex-wife was in an Erasmus program in Vienna. So we were communicating online. For some reason, we separately found that Ramadan 2011 was starting on August the 11th. For some reason, I don't know how we got this, because it was the date for the previous year, 2010. So we booked our train tickets for August the 1st. And only when she came back, we realized that actually Ramadan this year starts on August the 1st. It was too expensive for us to change the dates, and we took the cheapest ticket, so we couldn't get a refund. So we had to do it. And to add to the difficulty, so we booked our arrival at the north of the park and our departure from the south. And in between, it's a mountain range. You don't have public transportation, which meant if we wanted to get our train back to Paris, we had to cross the whole mountain range by foot. So at the time, I already had a quite extensive experience of hiking in full autonomy and in mountains. I've done several mountain ranges in the Alps before, at higher altitudes, longer distances, but my ex-wife didn't. But I got from the early start a very effective program, let's to say. So full autonomy is challenging, obviously, because not only you're walking, but you have to carry your own sustenance on your back. And on the top of that, I wanted to document our trip. So I took my professional camera equipment, which fits in this bag. It's a Lowepro D100 AW. It's not made anymore. I've got this one from since 2006, and it doesn't look very big, but with all the lenses, the battery and the camera, this thing weighs 10 kg, so 20 pounds. And I usually carry it around my waist, so it doesn't impede my movements and on my back. But in total, it was 27 kg on my back. So not only we needed to prepare our bodies for walking long distances, we also needed to prepare our backs and shoulders to carry this heavy weight throughout the journey. And of course I wanted to make things easy for my ex-wife, so I carried most of the things that we needed in common to let her wear, I would say, around 10 kg maximum. I think the maximum I've carried for something like 8 hours was 40 kg, 80 pounds. And it wasn't even in a hiking backpack where you have the strap around the waist. It was one of these standard issue backpacks, which is kind of a suitcase with shoulder straps really, fully loaded 40 kg. So most of my training and things I've learned through my professional experience in the past was natural body weight exercises. It's the best thing ever. You don't need to pay like like a gym membership or whatever, because most of the situations when it comes to outdoors is going to be you and your own body plus equipment. Program for starts is lots of squats. It's sessions of 100 squats spaced with a week of rest in between. And every week you gradually increase the weight you carry on your back. So first week, 100 squats, no weight. Second week, 5 kg on your back. Third week, 10 kg. Fourth week, 15, then 20, then 25. And the goal is to do these 100 squats in one go. And if you can do that without pause, then you're good to go. And if for some reason I wouldn't achieve that, I would take a repeat on the following week. So it does also have very good cardio exercise, I personally find, but everyone has perhaps different techniques. And the second part of the training is walking. So we would go with our full loads on our back, so me 25, my ex-wife 10 kg, and we would go for walks 8 hours on flat, which was, we would cover like 50 kilometers in 8 hours. And of course it was flat, but it was enough for us to accustom our shoulders and our back to the weight of the load. Well, you know, I don't get the runner's high when I train, when I exercise. Some people, when they run, you know, there's, I think, the endorphins or the dopamine or whatever hormones that makes people get kind of high when they exercise or when they run. This is why it's called the runner's high. I don't get it. And, well, I've read, they've done studies, it's genetic. Some people will never get it. Some people will always get it. So I don't get it, which makes training very unpleasant. But what I tell myself is, I'd rather suffer now than later and struggle and put maybe myself and somebody else in a dangerous situation where I can't take it anymore. I didn't know at the time that travelers were allowed not to fast, and I was new to Islam. My wife was born Muslim, so not only I loved her, but I also trusted her. I assumed she knew better because she grew up within the religion, and she told me that I had to fast. There's no other option, I had to fast. I mean, I was really relieved because she didn't have to. It was her time of the month, so that was really good. When fasting, the key is your meal program. I organize things this way. Morning, you need to make let's say a full tank of carbs and proteins, things that your body is gonna digest during the day. So you need to build your energy supply, that's to say, which meant, first of all, a pot of instant noodles with 100 grams of dried meat, homemade. I used to do the meat myself. And then a bowl of semolina with powdered milk, concentrated milk for the sweetness, and a little bit of cinnamon for a treat. So if you're Polish, or if your parents are Polish, you may recognize that the recipe of kasha manna. It's semolina with milk, and my mom used to make that for me every day before I went to school when I was a kid. And of course, drink as much water as possible before you start the day. For iftar, so the key was fast sugars. I don't know what's the name in English, but in French you say fast sugars. Fresh dates and dried milk, dried fruits, dried mangoes, dried figs and ananas, and dried soup and preserved cheddar cheese, you know, the Kraft cheddar cheese in blue boxes, and cereal bars. But the good thing is, in the Alps and many mountain ranges, water is readily available almost everywhere, with springs, and if you are above the ice line, then it's in the shape of ice that you need to melt. We would need to take water with us for later on in the evening for cooking. And of course, if we wanted to clean ourselves, water was like fundamental. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that was hard. Extremely hard. Your brain craves water, your brain craves sugar, sweet things. And with time and tiredness, things become distorted. When I was looking at the mountains, the summits with the ice cap, my brain would think that it was seeing like lemon sorbet. And that was pure torture, because my brain was telling myself, oh, how much I would like to just climb one of these mountains and just like put my spoon into the ice. As Muslims, we don't use toilet paper, or at least we try to avoid using toilet paper as much as we can. And when you hike in full autonomy, you don't have access to a shower. You may wash yourself in a river if you find one, but so if you go to the loo, you need to clean yourself thoroughly. I'm sorry, toilet paper is not effective enough. And the goal, if you don't have a shower for a certain number of days, you want to keep your body as clean as possible for the longest time possible. Hence water. You need to be comfortable using water. We had this block of Aleppo soap, which is extremely convenient because you can wash your body and your hair with it. And it just does marvels and keeps yourself clean. Lots of times. One time was when I was ill. I think it was day 3 or 4. After just a few hours before iftar, I had sudden stomach cramps, and one of the worst kind I've ever had in my life. I think the worst was when I had intestinal flu, and that was comparable. Cramps that really are debilitating and just ground you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I was just desperate to break my fast, even, you know, some water. I didn't know the reason. It happens extremely rarely to me, and yeah, but my ex-wife told me, no, don't break your fast, keep it, hold it. And even when I broke my fast, it just continued until I just had to just sleep it off in the night. But that was the most painful moment on the journey. We had a pass to climb, 2,800 meters, and we found ourselves in the middle of a thunderstorm. It was raining, so we ended up soaking wet. I don't wear waterproofs in the summer, except for the shoes. So all that, you know, jackets, t-shirts, trousers, completely wet. Whenever you hike, this is something that is bound to happen at some point. And the good thing, though, is when it's summertime, it dries up naturally as you walk. And I think this is a very good lesson of humility. You need to just accept the fact that, yeah, you're wet, and you just need to carry on. Physically, the most challenging thing was on day 2, we were supposed to end the day at a refuge, which is the French for a mountain cabin. The owners didn't allow us to pitch a tent in the vicinity. We couldn't either even pitch a tent around it in the surroundings for miles, and in miles the terrain was just not fit for that. And our only solution, still, we had to walk another 8 hours and climb a mountain pass to reach the second refuge, and it was pure torture. This is the day where we actually walked for 15 hours and a half, I remember. And when with tiredness your brain becomes cheese, I don't know how to explain it otherwise. You are in such a state where you cannot think of anything and you just need to turn the autopilot on, which means you need to breathe, put one foot in front of another and breathe, and there's nothing else and you can do, and you don't have a choice, because you know that if you don't reach your destination, it means no rest, no food, no sleep. You need to walk until the end. The secret of walking long distances is consistency, steadiness. You can be slow, it's fine, just be steady, be consistent, be like a clock, and you won't even notice time passing by. Equipment. So lots of people go for mainstream, like high street outdoor brands. And from an early age, I learned that this is not the best choice. I've learned to go for military equipment because you get the same quality for cheaper. Because the thing is, the military, you know, they have to sign these big contracts with the government, which means they need to produce the cheapest equipment possible, but at the same time, which would be the most resilient. So I go for plain colors like brown, green. Thing is, it makes you blend with the environment, and which is a bonus if you want to see animals up close, if you don't do sudden movements. One example is my backpack, which is a low alpine tactical, from the tactical line Salient. So this is a 70 liters backpack. Excellent shape factor because it fits as a cabin luggage. You have compression stripes, you can add external pockets to it. And this is the bag I've been hiking with since 2005, a bag that I've been also using for carrying my filming equipment around. It's done obviously the Alps, it's done deserts in the Middle East, it's done the Arctic, crossing Iceland. It's been in the jungle in French Guiana. It's done everything, and it's never has failed me. I won't be surprised if I pass it to the next generation, to be honest. And yeah, 150 pounds at the time. They're not made anymore, sadly. I don't know why, but these are built like tanks, and yeah, you can like just do whatever you like with them. They just don't break. And I'm pretty sure that if I was to get the same quality from a high street outdoor brands, I would have to spend anything between 250 and 500 pounds for equivalent quality. Other key equipment is our water pouches. So this one is from Black Hawk, but you have like many others. So 3 liters, 3 kg, it's important to remember the weight you could potentially carry. So for outdoor activities, that's the way to go, because you just carry this on your back and you've got this pipe and you just attach it to one of your straps, and when you're thirsty, boom, you just drink a little bit. It stays cold, maintains temperature quite effectively, and you just refill it from this like inlet here, and that's it really. Perhaps the only non-military equipment I have is this 3-person tent from Decathlon. It's a T3 tent. 3 people, but also T3 because 3 kgs. That's ultra light. That's really light for what it is. Completely waterproof. Same, I've used it in the Alps, in Iceland, under the wind, rain, storm. In the deserts, it withstood everything, except in Iceland. That's my fault. Bad orientation, and the wind was so violent that one of the poles broke, but they give you a quick repair kit with it, and you can buy spares online for very cheap. Again, this one was extremely cheap for what it is. I think I spent maybe like 50 pounds, less than 100. Yeah, by the way, I don't have shares with like any of these brands. I don't have any sponsored like anything. These are things I've been generally using for the past now 15 years, and just because it has served me well. But yeah, if they break and I've noticed there's better in the market, I'll go for something else. And everyone has different experiences. That's just my own experience. The most important piece of equipment is my first aid kit pouch, which contains anything for treating like wounds, allergies, headaches, because you know whatever can happen during a hiking trip. And most importantly, it has Compeed plasters, because even if you're a seasoned hiker, it happens to me, even if you have really good shoes, you're never safe from blisters. I've experienced what it is to walk for long hours with untreated blisters, and it's doable, but I am not telling you the pain that... Mountains have a very special place in my spiritual journey. This is one of the places I would go for meditation, because I think it's the vastness and it's the silence, especially when you're up high and there's no wind, everything becomes dead quiet, just like in the desert. And in the Alps, you just feel so humble, so small, because I don't know, a rock fall and you're done, avalanche, you're done, bad weather, yeah, you can be done with bad weather, and you just realize how insignificant a human being is in front of these mountains. And again, mentioning the night sky, for those who stay up late, that's a gift. The night sky, you can't find a single dark spot in the night sky, and the Milky Way, just like this giant neon light above you, and that's just crazy. When you wake up in the morning and you're above the clouds, there's this feeling of complete peace that you feel. I get it why in the Quran it's mentioned that mountains are a sign for those who believe. Hiking taught me how to live. Hiking teaches you life. And I always like to compare the journey of life to the journey of hiking, because most of the time, let's say, you're gonna be walking on a flat trail, very comfortable one, very wide. The weather is gonna be good, it's gonna be sunny, not too hot, not too cold, life is gonna be easy. But then, further down the line, you're gonna walk on the trail, is gonna completely change. It's gonna get very steep, very narrow. You will be probably walking on rocks, slippery rocks, and it may be raining, or you might find yourself under a thunderstorm. But still, you'll have to carry on, because again, if you stop, you will never reach destination. You will never reach shelter. So if you want to find yourself in a safe place, no matter what the conditions are, you have to carry on, even if it's slow, even if it takes time, even if you cannot see the end. You have to carry on. I also think that hiking with others, it teaches you another lesson of humility, because people in the workplace tell you, and everyone now, that you need to become a leader. You need to become the best, and which means you need to go ahead, to be ahead. You need to compete with each other, and others need to follow. And that's the complete opposite of the behavior you need to adapt in the mountain situation. You cannot compete with others. You cannot leave everyone behind and just like speed ahead. Because if you happen to be the one with the most skills and experience, you are responsible for others. And if you go ahead, if you lose your patience, if you get angry, if you give orders, if you make people upset, if you're not supportive, the whole group is meant for failure. You may arrive at destination, but then yeah, the rest of the group is going to have injuries or worse, I don't know. It's your duty to take care of the most vulnerable in the group and tell them where to put their feet, and give them tips and techniques for them to carry on. But sometimes some people can't. But the best thing you can do is be there for them. Everyone is on their own journey, but ultimately it's a collective effort. You need to be like a steward. You need to you're responsible, you need to be at the service of everyone. If you want everyone to reach destination, You need to be at the service of everyone, because this is a collective effort. This is not a selfish endeavor. And I believe this is the same in the workplace. In the workplace, I don't want to be a leader. I want to be a steward. I want to be a mountain guide. It's you know, always with your first aid kit. If something happens, you have to be there for them. It's not about getting likes or medals or whatever, because we all die someday. While we're here, the question is, what do we do to make everyone's journey more enjoyable or less difficult? There is a hadith actually saying that there's 3 ways of knowing someone really thoroughly. It's if you travel with them, if you do business with them, or if you live with them, because these are situations where you can first observe them on a long period of time, and second, where people are very likely to be pushed beyond their limits. And then you can see, first of all, how do people withhold being pushed without beyond their limits, and then how do they overcome these challenges. That's very simple and very revealing. Hiking, especially if you push yourself beyond your limits, that's the best way of assessing someone for their personality, because this is a time where like illness is gonna hit, where tiredness is gonna hit, and people are very quick to snap. People are really quick at losing patience, getting angry, but the question is, how do we as a collective overcome these trials and these challenges? And this is the key, because no one is invulnerable. No one is perfect. Everyone's gonna break at some point. I broke many times, but the question is, how do we collectively make sure that we move on and overcome these challenges and grow stronger? That's the key. Yeah, so for some reason, we ended up in Modan 2 days earlier than expected. I just cannot remember how it happened, but it happened. And again, we didn't have the money to buy earlier tickets or to just exchange them for an earlier return. And we didn't have the money to even pitch a tent, because we were in a town and the only place you could pitch a tent was the camping grounds. I was thinking, should we go back on the mountains and like do wild camping again? And that was not an option, because our bodies were hurting, we were tired, hungry, we just couldn't. And then, you know, it was 2011, so I didn't have a smartphone yet. I had one of these brick phones. I still had the early version of the internet with the 3G at the time. And just like that, I don't know what inspired me, but I just Googled mosque in Modan. And out of the blue, as crazy as it sounds, there was one. So we went there and we met the imam and had a chat with him. And they explained our situation and asked if we could stay the night at the mosque while we are waiting for our train to come. We have our own food and stuff, and this is when one thing led to another. And of course they said yes, but then later during the night after the Tarawih prayer, the Imam said, "Yeah, come with me," and he took us to his home, and we stayed at his home with his family, like 2 perfect strangers. Out of nowhere, with, you know, all dressed in green, all these heavy backpacks, and he told us, "Yeah, come and stay at mine," and we stayed. That was already like crazy enough. And we like had iftar with them, we prayed together, chatted together, and then before we left, a crazier thing happened. So obviously, we told him that my ex-wife was preparing her master's at the time, I was preparing my PhD in sociology, and he insisted for giving me money for my PhD. And I was like, no way, we are the guests. He is hosting us, he's offering us money, we should be the one thanking the guy. No, he was like dead serious. When someone offers you something, you decline once, you decline twice, you decline 3 times, and if he insists a 4th time, well, it's polite to say yes. So he insisted so much, and yeah, I had to say yes. And even, you know, it's just crazy, because in France, it's not like the UK or the US. You don't have to pay thousands for your PhD. It's literally maximum, I would say, 800. At my time, it was 800 euros per year. So 600 pounds, $800, like nothing really like extraordinary. And though he insisted, and that was the craziest thing that ever happened. You know what? This is the kind of experiences, if I was not believing at the time, they would have made me believe just like that. It's just, you know, these kind of experiences which are too much for being an accident, too much for being a coincidence. It's just, you know, things you cannot explain. With hiking in full autonomy, when you come back home, you realize how lucky, how privileged you are to have simple things like water running down your tap, food ready available in your fridge, or a soft bed on which you can lie down in the evening. And it sounds crazy, it sounds cheesy, whatever you like, but you really appreciate small things in life after such a journey. And this is why I really like to hike in these conditions, for me to remember and never forget that we can lose everything in the blink of an eye. And we need to be grateful for all the small things we have. We are in a society where we want more comfort, more money, bigger things, more space. But it's not the key in life. It's happiness happens when you can be satisfied and happy, content with all the small things you have, and make them work to the max of their ability. Another lesson that hiking really teaches me is that preparation and faith, if you combine the two, it says that faith can move mountains, but yeah, good preparation and faith can definitely make you move across mountains, physical ones, real ones, and metaphorical ones in life.